I'm standing on Boonwurrung country towards the southern end of the Mornington Peninsula National Park. I come down here almost daily. It's just one of those spots where nature feels so much bigger than you are, and I just find so much calm in that. It's really inspiring to come here into this environment and take some of these ideas of natural plant arrangements into the gardens that we're designing and building. I'm Fiona Brockhoff and I'm a landscape designer, and I've been designing gardens for over 35 years, and we live about a kilometre to the west from here. We've been living on this land for 28 years. It's 2 acres. It's amongst a tertiary dune system, and because we're amongst those dunes, we really wanted to introduce that experience as you enter the property. So as you come up the drive, you come over these lovely undulations. It slows people's journey down into the property, but it also gives people time to just leave the outside world behind them and connect with a landscape, and a very old landscape. In this part of the garden, I've used a lot of plants that I fell in love with while walking and hiking in the national park. And I really wanted to see what a lot of those plants were capable of in a horticultural situation. Sea box is one shrub that in the national park has this really ungainly sort of wild look to it, but clipping it twice a year can really give it such a beautiful tight shape, and it anchors the garden really well by doing that. She oaks are another species that have suffered the indignity of pruning, and again, what I'm showing is the hand of a person with those plants. So it feels like a garden space and not just a revegetation project. I've left open areas, which I guess in a design sense you would call a void, and the plants are the mass. And I think it's really important sometimes to give plants the space to actually show their character, and whether it's something you've pruned into a ball or shaped up into a beautiful sort of gnarly tree. I guess for me it's about giving them the space to shine as their own character. As we move towards the rear boundary in the national park, I've really loosened off the treatment of a lot of the shrubs particularly. So instead of sort of tightly pruning them, they might get pruned sort of once a year or every 18 months. And the reason I do that is to try and loosen the structure of the garden so it connects more with the wilderness of the national park. So this is very much a transitioning zone as we move from one part and meld, I guess, with another. It was important from the outset for us to design and build a garden here that felt like it truly belonged to the broader landscape and to this site. And in doing that, what we tried to do is include as many local materials as possible. So we've used local limestone that we'd collected over a number of years for the feature walls, old pier timbers from local pier renovations for a lot of the retaining walls, local gravel from Dramana, and some other sort of seaside decoration, I guess, to really make the garden feel like it belonged to this site from the very beginning. Wherever I'm designing gardens, it's really important to develop that sense of place for that garden and that sense of belonging to the broader landscape or the streetscape. And to achieve that, you need to study what's going on in that site, what the soil is like, how much shade does the site get, and where is the site located? You know, is it in natural bush or is it in a Federation Street in Melbourne? And draw clues and ideas from that to develop that unique sense of belonging for that garden. And that philosophy can be taken to anywhere in the world where you might want to develop a garden, whether it's a rooftop garden or a shady, clayey gully. Actually working with what you've got and drawing on the unique character of that site is really important. This terrace garden on the north side of the house affords these really beautiful views up the peninsula, and we've framed those views with the use of olive trees, and we've stripped the olive trees up so we can sort of see, I guess, beneath them and beyond them. And the other plants on this terrace, I guess they're like supporting characters in a way. There's Coria alba and Elixir buxifolia, which are indigenous species. But also we've embellished that planting with the use of a couple of New Zealand favourites, flax and cordyline, and then added succulents from different parts of the world, aeoniums, agaves, and they're some of the plants from, I guess, my favourite plants from my childhood. We grew up in a modernist house in Melbourne with a modernist style garden, and they were some of the plants that I guess I really connected to and loved as a child. And I think, you know, the development of a garden, whether you're a landscape designer or developing your own garden, it's very much about including plants that you connect to. And so whether they're plants that come from your childhood or that someone gave you a cutting of, it's really about developing a situation where you feel like you belong and you connect to the plants that you include. The productive part of the garden is really important to me because it provides not just food for family and friends, but it also gives us an opportunity to recycle a lot of the kitchen waste, but also to look after the world in a better way. We feed the chooks with things that they like to eat, and in return they give us eggs and fertiliser, and it gives us an opportunity to compost other things and use that compost on the garden as nourishment. Gardening's really important for people, I think. It connects them back to nature, and for me particularly, nature and gardening is my medicine. You know, if I'm feeling a bit sort of down or in a bad mood, I come down into the garden and it just really takes the sort of worries of the world away for me. And I think it's really important for human beings to get their hands into the soil and experience that, the joy of growing things.